Welcome back into the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented by Full Press Coverage. I know we talked earlier about the Lakers and Celtics earlier this week, Sap, but it's not like things have gotten any better for either of our teams this week. So we're going to talk about them. Also going to talk about your new favorite player in the NBA, Ja Morant. Is he Sap's heir apparent to LeBron James? Is the guy that he follows throughout the league, as he inevitably will leave the Grizzlies at some point, I assume. Also going to
Well, if
talk
he ends
about
up with the Lakers with LeBron, then I'll be all for that. No,
you're fine with that.
Luke is my guy. I mean, Luke is my heir apparent. I'm watching this young guy, Ja Morant, who's only in his third year, just doing things that are spectacular. And there's a couple of things that he's done from last season to this season that I find so impressive. So,
let's start with him then, Sap.
Okay,
let's talk about
go right to Ja.
Ja has been opening eyes throughout the NBA. Early to start the season, he's been playing probably if you want to give an award for 5 games, maybe he's the MVP of the league in 5 games. Yep. He's been playing fantastic. Seems to have really took a leap from last year, where he was still excellent. Obviously 2 years ago, he was the rookie of the year in the NBA. And he's got the Grizzlies on the national radar, where people are actually paying attention to what they do, which isn't often the case in Memphis. So what are you seeing out of Ja Morant, Sal?
I'm seeing so many great things, Jet. And part of this is that he came out the same year that Zion Williamson came out. New Orleans drafted Zion. Memphis selected Ja Morant. And maybe we look back in time and say New Orleans made a mistake in picking Zion because of the durability factor. Here they are in their third year, the beginning of their third year, and Zion's not even playing. Ja Morant's already played 50 more games than Zion Williamson, and it's only the start of their third year. So that's something you have to look at when you compare these two players. But the thing I look at with Ja Morant is he is an uber athletic point guard, right? Without question. I mean, he's like the heir apparent Derrick Rose to Russell Westbrook, Allen Iverson, John Wall. Yeah, like that super athletic point guard. The thing I like so much about him, unlike John Wall and Russell Westbrook, and to a lesser degree, Derrick Rose, it's tough to really gauge Derrick Rose because of all the injuries he had at such a young age. I think Ja Morant's more self-aware than those guys. He spent the offseason, by all accounts, I wasn't in the Memphis area or wherever Ja Morant lives, but I read. There's a thing called the internet that gives us plenty of information. He spent a ton of time working on his three-point shot and on his free throw shooting. And you see the improvement. Last year, he was a 30% three-point shooter. This year, over 41%. Now, I know it's a small sample, but you can just tell he's much more confident taking that three-point shot. Last year, he was a 73% free throw shooter. This year, he's in the mid-80s. So he realized, okay, I've got a lot of things going for me. I'm super athletic. I can drive to the basket. My mid-range game is great because no one can really cover you one-on-one. But I got to get better at the free throw line because I'm a point guard. I'm going to have opportunities to get to the free throw line. And also, I've got to get better from 3-point territory because that's going to be open for me as well. Because if you're defending Ja Morant, you're scared shit that he's just going to drive right by you. So he's going to have ample room to get those 3-pointers off. He's worked his ass off in the offseason to get better at that. That's something I never saw from John Wall or Russell Westbrook. And again, let's leave Derrick Rose to the side, who actually now has become better at that after all the injuries in the advanced stage. That to me is making him a player that's going to be a superstar in this league, a leader. He's got elite leadership skills. He appears to love playing in Memphis. Like you hear we already hear stories Zion wants out of New Orleans. And maybe he should, because you got David Griffin running things there, and it looks like a cluster, with the New Orleans Pelicans. But everything we read about Ja Morant is, I'm in Memphis and I'm going to make us contenders. He's got a great attitude. So I think all of that together is making him a player who's probably make the biggest leap from year 2 to year 3, or maybe just from last year to this year is had a great leap. And now he looks like a bona fide all-star. And again, it's only 5 games, MVP candidate. I mean, Memphis might be the 6 or 7 seed if they're fortunate. So I think when you look at all of that, that's why I think this is an emerging player and just a dynamite player and someone that's easy to root for, because we first got to see him, right, Jet, at Murray State.
Yeah.
Right. Remember in the tournament? And I think that's another thing I like about him, because he wasn't as heavily recruited as these other players, right?
Coming out of high school. He's not tall. And so,
right.
So
he's
he grew a little bit in college.
Right. So those guys always intrigue me. It's almost like the quarterbacks in football, like the guys. Look, Tom Brady obviously was the 199th pick in the 2000 NFL draft. That's how
Right.
long ago it was. And even a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who's a talented quarterback, my favorite quarterback, he had to go through Butte Junior College before he went to Cal. When the guys have to have that road to where they're going, I think they have a little bit more hunger and desire. The AAU setup, and then you go to Duke, like Jason Tatum or Zion Williamson or Brandon Ingram, you just kind of feel entitled, right? When you walk into the NBA, it's like, yeah, I belong here. With Ja, it appears to me like he's just got a different makeup than those guys, and I think that can maybe separate him going forward. Maybe I'm getting a little bit overboard with this player, but all of those factors I think are very important in the growth of a player.
Yeah, I was going to say that, Seb. I think that's a good point in terms of why he's very comfortable playing in a small market in Memphis is because of his, collegiate background, Murray State. And so I don't think that he was necessarily even gung ho about, I really want to play in a huge market like New York or something. I think he was very comfortable, probably happy he got drafted by Memphis. Now, as you progress in your NBA career, and you see the effects of playing in a small market and you don't necessarily achieve the winning you want to, maybe that changes down the road. But for now, I think he's very happy and very comfortable, and maybe he does want to stay there long term. I don't know the guy. I don't know the situation, but right now it's working great. And what I really like is it seems like there's a budding rivalry between Ja Morant and Steph Curry, which I think is really interesting. Obviously, the Grizzlies knocked out the Warriors last year in that play-in tournament. They took the playoff spot of the Warriors, and the other night they beat the Warriors in overtime. And Ja Morant outdueled Steph Curry a little bit. I think it's an interesting little rivalry, maybe like a little passing of the torch of point guards in the Western Conference, Sep. But he'll go at anybody. That's something to like about him is he shows no fear, no awe, no, he's just ready to play and do whatever he can to help his team win. And yeah, his stats through 5 games are awesome. Except you gave the percentages, but in terms of just total numbers, over 30 points a game, over 5 rebounds a game, almost 8 assists a game. He has the 4th highest player efficiency rating in the NBA, so he's doing it at a very efficient level. There's nothing not to like so far about the early returns from Ja Morant this year. He's actually playing good defense too. He's getting steals every night. There's really very little nitpick about his game. The only concern I have about him long-term, Sap, is what I said on the show the other day is that, these types of guards who are uber athletic, smaller guards tend to break down like running backs do. Like you said, though, he does seem to have dedicated himself to shooting a little bit more. So maybe that will help. But the track record of these guys, Derrick Rose, John Wall, 2 guys who I think he compares really close to at points in their career, completely broke down. And so the history isn't on Ja Morant's side, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's doomed to repeat the exact same career pattern as those guys had. So that's my only concern about him. But that's a ways away. I mean, he's in his 3rd year, he's 22 years old, Sap, I think, and he just turned 22. So I think, we'll have plenty of time to enjoy it before something like that happens. I'm crossing my fingers, at least.
Isn't it similar to looking at quarterbacks, right? So you got Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, quarterbacks, Kyler Murray, that can all move outside the pocket and can beat you with their legs. And then at some point, they've got to obviously learn to be pocket passers, right? It almost feels that way with point guards. You're uber athletic. You can get to the rim. You can beat your man off the dribble. That's all well and good. But to really evolve into a great player, at the level of, say, Chris Paul, who didn't have the athletic ability that those guys have, but he was a more skilled basketball player, you become a better ball handler. You become a better shooter. You become a knockdown 3-point shooter and a 85% free throw shooter, and now you've got the total package. That's when you see these quarterbacks that, after a while, you can't just beat people with your legs. You have to beat people from in the pocket at some point in the game. That's what you're seeing with this young man and becoming an outstanding 3-point shooter and free throw shooter, that now his game is expanded. I never got that feeling with Derrick Rose or with John Wall, and I quite frankly never got that feeling with Russell Westbrook, who may be the best athlete to ever play the position. I mean, we could talk about Ja Morant, Derrick Rose, John Wall. In terms of pure athletic ability, I don't know if we've ever seen a better athletic point guard than Russell Westbrook. 6'3", 200 pounds, could have probably played quarterback in the NFL, center field in Major League Baseball, whatever in soccer. I mean, could you picture him on a soccer pitch, how dominant he would be just by sheer effort, because the guy does play his ass off, but he never became a really good shooter. And now he's not even hitting free throws, which is alarming because he has the ball in his hands quite a bit. Now, Morant's favorite player growing up was Russell Westbrook, right? That's his favorite player, and he kind of plays like him. And like Westbrook, he's not afraid to get in the face of his opponents, which I kind of like. But I think Ja Morant also respects Steph Curry. That's a fine line that you have to find, right? You don't want to back down from the all-time great players, but you also want to at least respect them and show them, they're just due for being all-time great players. But that is a kind of a cool rivalry, isn't it? Because you get Steph, who's 10, 11 years older, not the athlete that Ja is, but we all agree the best shooter in the history of the sport. And it's kind of fun when the old guy and the young guy
Bayless doesn't seem to agree with that. I saw him tweet something about Ray Allen the other night.
Yeah, now it's Ray Allen. Well, again, because Ray Allen helped LeBron win a championship, Skip has to elevate Ray Allen to make it that Ray Allen won that championship in Miami. It's a great trick that Skip does. I mean, I love Skip. I think he's, first of all, if you've had the opportunity, read his stuff. He's a phenomenal writer, right? So, and again, give the man credit. He makes $6.5 million a year, trolling essentially. But when he put out his top 10 players in NBA history and he had LeBron at number 9, I go, you're trolling a little bit too much here. I don't know anybody who doesn't have LeBron in the top 4. And most of us have him in the top 2, and some of us have him at number 1. No one in their right mind has LeBron at number 9. So that's Skip, of course, trolling.
Who do you have at 8? Ray Allen?
Ray Allen, yeah. Manu Ginobili was probably ahead of him. Who else? Kyrie Irving,
Bosh and
Chris Bosh. Because exactly. LeBron played with the 8 greatest players in NBA history, thus making him number 9. So yeah, I mean, Curry's the greatest shooter ever. Come on, I mean that's pretty. That's inarguable, isn't it? I mean, I've seen a lot of great shooters, but this guy is like, he's turned into an art form.
I mean, if I don't know how you could argue it. I think that Ray Allen's form is more aesthetically pleasing. Maybe, I don't know.
I don't even know about that, Jet. This guy's got the quickest release I've ever seen. Like I don't know.
You're really reaching for anything to try to argue that. I don't know.
Come up with that. Yeah. I mean, and again, Skip loves to detail things that happened like 6 years ago. He's still talking about the fourth quarter of the 2016 finals. That's like today, Skip and Shannon were going at it about, is Rodgers the best quarterback in football? And of course, Skip has to show some play from a Philadelphia Eagles game 2 years ago, where he missed a guy in the end zone and they lost the game. I mean, that's 2 years ago. And I know Tom Brady's never missed an open wide receiver in 20 plus years. That never happened. So yeah, I mean, Skip's great at what he does. Look, we're talking about him. He doesn't know who the hell we are. And good for him. He's getting, he's sucking up valuable podcast time here, Jet. Let's move on to Skip.
Well, I just want to say exactly.
Go back to Ja.
So I have it right, Sap. This is what he did say. Steph has 2 shots to win it, no and no, scores 36 for the game, 0 in the fourth quarter. He's often come up even smaller than that in big playoff games. He's an all-time great, but he's no Ray Allen.
Oh, man.
So take of that what you will.
Yeah, no, Ray's great. I love Ray Allen. Ray Allen was huge in 2008 when the Celtics won the title. You could have made a case that he was the MVP of the finals as much as you could have with obviously the guy who was the MVP of the final, Paul Pierce. Ray Allen was fantastic, and he did hit. You can make a case the biggest shot, at least in modern day NBA history. Because
sure, oh yeah, I think so.
As big as Kyrie's shot was, there was still a lot of time left, and the game was tied. It just didn't seem like anyone was going to score in that game. They may have still been playing if Kyrie doesn't hit that 3. Ray Allen, if he misses that shot, the series is over. San Antonio in 6, and he kind of hit the shot. It was like. It felt like a bowling alley, like there were bodies flying. There was the ball flying. Bosh is giving him a short, quick pass. He's got to set his feet. It's just a remarkable shot. Yeah, so you give all these credit to all these guys you want. But, I mean, Steph's redefined the game, Jet, right?
I think the more interesting debate, and I had this with somebody on YouTube in the comments on one of our shows, is is Ray Allen and Klay Thompson. I think is a much more interesting debate.
Very similar. Yep.
Not Ray Allen and Steph Curry.
Yeah. No. Ray Allen, Klay is a good debate because they're bigger. Ray Allen 6'5", Klay 6'7". I would probably even take Klay over Ray Allen. But Klay's also fortunate to play with Steph Curry because Steph Curry opens up things. I mean, imagine a prime Ray Allen playing with a prime Steph Curry. That would have been silly to face, right? So those are like the three guys I think of when I think of great, just pure shooters. I mean, Larry Bird's right there with them because he was so clutch and he never feared taking big shots. And I think you agree with me that Reggie Miller is somewhat overrated. And I think it all goes back to he scored 9 points in 7 seconds against the Knicks in the playoffs with Spike Lee there, so it's iconic. I think Reggie Miller's below those guys as a shooter. But Skip does great stuff when he trolls Steph Curry again because Durant's his guy. He's got to minimize Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, make it look like
it all comes back to LeBron, right?
It does. Everything goes back to LeBron. It's like
I feel he's like one of those serial killers, or maybe the detectives who has the the maps with the pins and all the little strings are coming back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, he's a master. That's why he gets paid the big bucks. He's the master troll.
$6.5 million. Mm-hmm.
Yep. The master
it's like the
troll.
FBI. Remember in The Departed where the FBI has the mob chart, with the guy on top and the underboss to the left and the capo to the right and all that stuff. So everything goes back to LeBron. But back in terms of Ja, I really like the player. And I want to ask you this. You're a Celtics guy. And we're going to talk about the Celtics. I know. Right now, late October 2021, my Green Bay Packers are 7-1. I'm very excited about that. Would you take Ja Morant or Jason Tatum?
That's a really good question. Right now, I would take Jason Tatum, but it may purely be because I'm biased and a Celtics guy. Honestly, my gut answer is always with that question, go with the taller guy.
Right, the bigger guy. Even in today's NBA, Jet,
in today's NBA, because he could shoot threes over people.
Yeah, I mean, look, Jason Tatum has all the physical skills to be.
But whose heart do I like more? Morant.
Exactly. See, that's the thing. And I think leadership ability, too. This kid's balls to the walls. I mean, he's not afraid. He almost has, I think Marcus Smart's lost some of his attitude. Big contract. I think his opinion of himself is higher. But he kind of plays hungry, doesn't he, Ja Morant? Like, I've got to prove to everybody that I belong. Again, Murray State. Like, if you come from Murray State compared to Duke, you're coming into the NBA with a total different mindset, right? So, and the game is so geared to point guards. Look, Jason Tatum's ridiculous talent. I mean, he's 6'9", 6'10", 230. He's got one of the best bodies in the NBA because he's the perfect like physique for basketball. Kind of like a Scottie Pippen type physique where he's strong, but he's not bulky. And the guy can score from anywhere on the court. I think he's a really good passer when he decides to pass. He can rebound. He can defend when he feels like defending. But yeah, that thing inside your chest, that's the difference between these two. And I also think that Morant has that leadership ability that Tatum's never going to have it. Some players don't have it. In fact, most don't.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's an outrageous question. I mean, I would assume some Celtics fans listening are probably upset about that question, but I would still stick with Tatum. I understand why you're asking the question, and certainly Morant has played better than Tatum to start the season. And maybe Morant at his height maybe Morant rather at his height will be a better player than Tatum. I will just say because of Tatum's, like you said, physique and skill set and length and all that, he'll probably have more longevity.
Right.
So I'll stick with Tatum. But it's, it's certainly an interesting debate. And I think that Morant is quickly becoming one of the most popular players in the league and will continue to be. So there's no real wrong answer there. But again, if it's close, I always will default to the bigger player.
Yeah, I mean, Tatum is 6'9", 6'10". Apparently he grows 2 inches every year. He's like Jack and the Beanstalk. So, although we've seen him stand next to Kevin Durant, he's not that much shorter than Durant, who I believe is 7 feet tall. So Tatum is a legit 6'10". And again, he's got all the skills. I mean, again, he's another guy that if I could wake up being an NBA player, he'd be one of those guys to have all that ability. Still none more than Kyrie Irving, because Kyrie is 6'2", 6'3", so he'd kind of blend into society a little
Just
easier
had
than a
to mention
6'10"
him.
guy. Oh, I
If
want
you
to bring
say
him up because I know I'm trolling you at this
if you
point
say
because I
his
got to
name
always
3
bring him
times,
in.
he appears like the
I
boogeyman,
know. I
like
thought I was going to say
Beetlejuice.
if I say his name 3 times, throw me off the podcast.
Yeah.
But I do like Ja over Tatum because of that big heart. Now remember, Ja was the second pick in 2019, and Zion was the first pick, and I love Zion. I think I like Zion more than you do, but we got to be concerned with Zion going forward, right? I mean, like I said, Ja has played 50 more games than Zion, and they're only in the beginning of their third year. The second surgery now for Zion, and reports are he's carrying well over 300 pounds. That's
Yeah.
alarming, Jed.
Yeah. That's not good. I think Zion's getting some really bad advice, either from his
Mm-hmm.
family or from his agent, that, he needs to find a way to get out of New Orleans, and, everybody seems to think New York's the place he wants to go. Some are big market. It seems like he's doing all these things almost intentionally to get out of New Orleans. Now he says, New Orleans is my favorite city on earth. I'm very loyal to here, but we've heard all these rumors about I think it's his dad not happy with him there. The agent obviously not happy with him there. He put off the surgery until later than he had to with the foot. Now he's carrying, like you said, 300 pounds, which is way too much weight for him to carry. But I think this is mostly coming down to bad advice and maybe a little bit of a lack of self-control from Zion. And those things, the self-control thing can be addressed with, maturity and maybe having the right people in your ear. But yeah, there's certainly reason to be concerned, because it's not so easy when you're in your career, early in your career, I should say, to have that mechanism to get out of town if you want to get out of town. The Pelicans have no real reason or motivation to trade him or accommodate him that way. And him missing time doesn't help him, stand out to other teams. So I'm not quite sure what's going on. My theory is that he's getting a lot of bad advice right now.
No, I think that's a good point. Again, as far as the weight, when he came into the league, he's listed at 6'6", and his weight was 284 pounds, which, that's fine if you're a defensive end in the NFL. It's even big for a tight end. He probably carried more weight than that even in his first 2 years. Now they're reporting over 300 pounds. The player he's most compared to is Charles Barkley. Now, when Barkley came into the league in 1984, 6'4.5", about 290. They're similar athletes, incredibly explosive.
Yeah.
Barkley, within his first year, lost the weight and played normally, I'd say, around 250, 255. Barkley always had kind of this bizarre physique, huge ass and thighs, like not a real developed upper body, but Barkley's one of the best athletes we've ever seen in the NBA, without question. I mean, the guy led the league in rebounding many times at 6'4.5". So that's what now Zion has to do, is get that weight under control, and that will take pressure off the knee, the foot. He's already had surgery on both of those. And look at what he produced in his first 2 years. 60% from the floor, 27 points per game. We know he can be a facilitator, excellent passer. I think he can be a really good defender. He's got a great feel for the game. Like, he's not just out there because he's the best athlete. He's also a really smart basketball player. So I wouldn't give up on him at all. But if he wants out of New Orleans, don't you think the Pelicans at some point are going to have to address that and maybe trade him sooner than later? And what exactly do you get in return, and where do you send him? I mean, obviously he wants to play for the Knicks. So do you get on the phone with the Knicks and say, yeah, we want X, Y, and Z for Zion? And the Knicks, who I think the Knicks like their team, right? So
yeah, I do.
Don't the Knicks
Dolan,
feel a little?
Dolan, if he has the chance to get Zion, would trade whatever it takes. Yeah.
I mean, Julius Randle last year was as good, if not a better player than Zion. But and as much as Julius Randle's really embraced New York, and I think the fans love him, Zion's a potential superstar, and he's also 21, 22 years old. But, I mean, don't you get the feeling with the Knicks fans that they feel about that team like the Celtics did with the Bridgies, with the Isaiah Thomas team? It's like they're going out there every night because
they love him.
They're going to just give you 100% every night, unlike the current Celtics team. The Knicks are going to go out there and they're going to scrap for 48 minutes. They're not giving up. And I think the fans really embrace that. And do you want to break that up? Obviously, your ceiling's only so high if Julius Randle's your best player. So that's going to be interesting to see what happens if, Zion really forces the issue to get out of New Orleans.
Yeah, I mean, from an agent perspective, I get it, and from probably his parents' perspective, I get it. Like, it's a suck situation there. They hired the absolute worst head coach they could have last year in Stan Van Gundy. So that was a botch. Then they let Lonzo Ball go for nothing this offseason. The ownership doesn't really care about the Pelicans. They're kind of all in on the Saints. So you're not, a priority of ownership at all. Fans seem sort of lukewarm to it anyways, because you've never really been that good. So it's not a great situation to be in for sure, but it's also hard when you're undisciplined and you're hurting and you're carrying so much weight and you have these injuries to then sort of reverse course when you get to your desired destination, be like, okay, I'm going to do everything the right way.
Right.
These things are habit forming, and it's hard to break habits, as I'm learning, trying to eat differently and exercise now. It's difficult to break bad habits. And so, that concerns me about Zion. I do think the injuries are purely weight related.
It doesn't help. It doesn't help.
I mean, I think he should be in the 260s.
Yeah, he can carry more weight than the average NBA player. He's got a huge frame.
I think he's 40 pounds overweight, Seth.
At least.
That's significant.
Yeah, I mean, that's again, he's 6'6". I mean, you'd want to see a guy 6'6" around 225. He would look almost famished at 225. He's a big dude. Yeah, you're right. 255, 260 max, not 284.
No, I think 260 is a fine playing weight for him because he could carry, and he could look jacked if he has the right trainer and stuff. But right now, I saw that commercial with him, Steph. I don't know if you see where he's playing video games. He looks effing huge. He looks fat. He looks fat as hell.
He does. He's such an easy guy to root for too, isn't he? I mean, I wrote a column last year. I think he's the future face of the NBA. That's quite a large face, at this point, because
he has
hopefully doesn't eat himself
crazy
out
athletic
of the
ability, and he again, if he's like 260, he could carry it and look like a jacked 260, like LeBron always looks jacked.
Right. Yeah, LeBron's
he could have
always in shape. Yep,
he could have that type of like incredible physique, but right now it's fat. And it's too much. He needs a trainer, and he needs some discipline, and he needs some better advice. Play out the contract in New Orleans. If he wants to do it, if he wants to do it, the route of signing a 1-year qualifying offer and then hitting free agency, then that's his right. Go and do that. But
how many years could that take then, Jet? What's the soonest he could be out of New Orleans? Like in terms of the money, like I know he would make more money in New Orleans than he would going into free agency immediately, but the guy's got a ton of money in terms of endorsement. And look, 35 million still decent to live on, I think, right? I mean, maybe you can make an extra 10 or 12 million staying in New Orleans, but you're going to make more in endorsements by playing in New York or LA or wherever. But what's the soonest he could pull that off?
2023. 2024, 2025, he could be a free agent if he takes a 1-year qualifying offer. No one has ever done that before. A rookie has declined the max extension for the 1-year qualifying offer, which would be about $13.5 million, give or take. He could do that and then become a free agent the following year. But he'd be sacrificing a couple $100 million potentially for the chance to get out of New Orleans. If he does the 1-year qualifying offer, it's over. He's leaving, so they'd have to essentially trade him. So then, I guess hypothetically, that year they could trade him, so it could be a year earlier. But again, you don't want this to be a Robert Tractor Trailer, Oliver Miller situation. Now he's far more talented than those guys. But there have been players who've eaten themselves out of the league before, and he has the potential to be one of the best players in the league. It would be a shame of epic proportions if you can't get this under control. And it starts with self-discipline, and it starts with getting better advice.
And the thing with Zion, like some other guys, that you talked about, obviously they didn't have the athleticism that Zion has. Like Zion could go out there probably at 300 pounds and still dominate, because he's just so damn good and so athletic and has a great feel for the game. but just think about what he would do at 260. The thing is, he's one of the most likable players I can recall coming into the NBA. Like, I don't know who doesn't like Zion. He's got that smile, that charisma. I think he's got a tremendous amount of humility. Like, you love Zion. You just want to give him a hug, right? You want Zion to be successful.
But he's got to play.
But he's got to play. I mean, you can't just, like Joel Embiid didn't play a lot in his career, right? But those were, maybe that had to do with conditioning or whatever. I don't know. I mean, it seems to me like the guys that are always out of shape do get hurt more than the guys that are in shape.
But I mean, that's a good example, Seth, because like you can turn it around after not playing for a couple of years, but it takes something. You can't, it's not just a stroke of luck. You got to put something into it.
You do. And I think
Embiid's obviously in better condition now than he was earlier in his career. He's still, he's not in amazing shape, but it's certainly better than it was.
No, he's not Kareem circa 1985, who was.
No, I don't think Zion will ever be that either. But
they never will be. He's not going to be LeBron.
He should be able to play 75 games in a season. I think that's a reasonable expectation.
He's 21 years old. Like I said, he and Ja Morant, same draft. Ja Morant's already played 50 more games, and they're just starting their third year. That's shocking to me. I think I tweeted out earlier in the week, he's already missed more games than either Karl Malone or John Stockton missed in their entire careers. And they played 19 seasons. I mean, those guys were durable beyond all hell. And I know back then there wasn't load management and all that stuff. I mean, but just think of those two guys playing all those games. And most of those games that Karl Malone missed was his last year with the Lakers. I think he missed 10 games while he was a Utah Jazz. I mean, I'm not a Karl Malone or John Stockton fan, far from it. But man, give those two guys credit. They showed up every night to play. I mean, great nickname, the mailman, right? Always delivered.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That was one of the best nicknames ever. But this guy, I think you're right, Jed. I think you really nailed it. He needs to get better advice. And sometimes what happens is when you get a young guy and you get people around him, or if they're just yesing him to death or whatever, you need someone who can kind of sit him down and say, Zion, you're wasting your ability, and you can have, a transformational career, incredible wealth, which he's going to have anyway because of the sneaker deals and all that stuff. But you don't want to be at 42 years old, wake up one day and go, man, I could have been a lot better than I was. You want to put as much into it. And that's one thing I'll give LeBron credit for, right? I mean, I think when he retires, he can sit down and say, I got the most out of my ability because I put the time in. Maybe I should have won another championship if I had played better against Dallas. And I get all that. But in terms of the pure effort, like those guys never took shortcuts. And I hope Zion realizes that. And being in New Orleans may not be the best place. It's arguably the best restaurant city in America. So
yeah, I was just there. Everything has a lot of butter in it too.
Yeah. Going to New York wouldn't be easy either. I mean, actually even more great restaurants because of the sheer size of the city.
But Sap, it's part of your job as a professional athlete is not just the on the court performance. It's being disciplined enough to be in shape. That's part of the job. That's part of why you get paid is you're supposed to be in phenomenal shape.
Hey, Tom Brady and LeBron James spend about $2 million a year on their bodies. And it's not a coincidence that Brady at 44 is still among the best quarterbacks in football, and LeBron at 37 is, playing at a very, very high level. So, I mean, it's that, you get what you put into it. And let's hope that Zion gets the message, because I think he'd be great for the league. I really do. I think he could be the face of the NBA because of his charisma and his, kind of almost like a cartoonish game that he has. It looks like a superhero out there. So I want to see him, make sure that he gets the most out of his ability.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly, like I said, it's not a great situation there. I don't blame him for not loving the situation there. But he's got to hold up his end of the bargain too.
Yep.
The team hasn't held up their end of the bargain, but two wrongs don't make a right.
Exactly.
That's not the way to handle things. Sap, you wanted to do an exercise which I always love doing, and I'm never going to turn down. Not a complete redraft because we'd be here all day, but taking a look again at that 2019 draft, since the two guys we just talked about, Ja Morant and Zion Williamson, headlined that draft. At this point, Sap, if you were to redraft, it sounds like you would do that in opposite order now.
Yeah, I would go with Ja. Again, the game is so guard centric, and we have no injury concerns with Ja Morant. I know we both agree that these uber athletic point guards, like running backs, and that's a great comparison, tend to burn out, sooner than later because they're smaller and they take a lot of punishment, although the league has changed from when Allen Iverson was driving to the basket and getting body slammed. But this young man, Ja Morant, has really worked on his perimeter game, his free throw shooting. Yeah, I would take Ja Morant right now over Zion. And I love Zion. But
all things being equal, Sap, who has the higher ceiling?
If Zion is totally committed to his health, I mean, this kid has a chance to be ridiculous. I mean, I'm not going to put him that he's at the level of LeBron, because, that's off the discussion, because there are no guys like that.
Right.
But yeah, at his highest, he could be better than Ja. But the way the game is, it's so, dominated by guards, and we're never going to have an issue about Ja Morant, showing up 30 pounds overweight. If anything, he could probably use 10 more pounds. He's just a real skinny dude. But I would say that Ja is the guy I would take over Zion. Zion's ceiling is, a mini version of Shaq.
Yeah.
Like that type
Charles
of guy.
Barkley.
Charles Barkley. Yeah, that's not bad, right? Who I have as a top 20 player. Yeah, absolutely. So Ja's ceiling is, what's Ja's ceiling? Is it Westbrook? But Westbrook or Iverson, or one of those great guards that just you can't take
win
your
an
eyes
MVP.
off.
Yeah, he could win an MVP.
Oh yeah, I could see him win an MVP. Absolutely, yeah, without question. And again, I like the fact that he's getting. I like his self-awareness.
Be a top 5 player in the league for a couple of years. That's his ceiling,
absolutely. Yeah, and with Zion again, could be the face of the league. Maybe Ja could be the face of the league too, because he's got a great personality and all of that stuff. I mean, it turned out this was a pretty interesting draft with the two guys at the top. But
after that, then Sap. But where do you go?
Yeah, I mean, in that draft?
Who
else was in that draft? Because those are the
RJ
headliners.
Barrett
obviously.
went 3. DeAndre Hunter went 4. Darius Garland went 5. Another guy, Tyler Hero, went 13. And the other notable picks, Cam Reddish, who's starting to have a nice season, went number 10. Ryu Hachimura went number 9. Matisse Thybulle, who I like because he plays really awesome defense, he went number 20.
And he can't shoot, so you really like him.
Yes, he cannot shoot a lick.
No, he makes Marcus Smart look like Steph Curry.
Keldon Johnson went number 29. He's a player that I like from the Spurs. Kevin Porter Jr.
Olympic team, right? Yeah, he made the Olympic team.
He was on the Olympic team. The Celtics had a couple cracks at this draft. They botched virtually every pick they had.
Which is par for the course for Danny Ainge. I would say that RJ Barrett's probably the third best player in that draft. In fact, wasn't he more highly recruited than Zion going into
recruit in the nation? Yeah.
So Duke generally gets like the top 3 recruits. It's not a secret. But yeah, I mean, I would say RJ Barrett. That's a weird draft, isn't it? You got 2 guys that could really be, obviously, franchise.
You like
players.
Barrett better than Tyler Hero?
Hero's off to a good start.
Yes.
Hero's off to a really good start. He's also, Barrett's in a good situation with the Knicks. I mean, I wasn't as high on the Knicks coming into the season as I think a lot of people, and I may have to change that again. Most of these teams play 5-6 games.
I'm not surprised they're starting off hot, Sap, and I was with you at the beginning of the season. I think they'll burn out. I
see that at some point. Yeah, I mean, that style of play with that coach, it's going to be difficult. I mean, is management of the Knicks going to make a move at the trade deadline to augment that team? I don't know. I mean, they're a fascinating story. They do. They remind me of the Bridges with Isaiah Thomas. Like you're gonna get the most out of them, and the fans are gonna be happy. But what's the ceiling there? They're not really a title contender. But yeah, Barrett or Hero. I like Hero's game. He can be really explosive, and he's in a perfect situation, right? He's coming off the bench. He's got veterans there that can kind of keep him straight. Barrett's game is really expanding, and so is Reddish's.
Yeah,
really starting to contribute to Atlanta. So, but the gap between 1, 2, and then the next is pretty fast.
It is. I like DeAndre Hunter from the Hawks too. I think he's more of a 3-and-D guy. I don't think he projects as, a massive scorer. Garland, everybody's very high about from Cleveland, but he's kind of taken a step back so far this year. Again, only 5 games, but he's only scoring like 12 a game. Culver went 6. He's already been traded. He's going to flame out of the league. Kobe White is an interesting player from Chicago who I like, but now they have Lonzo Ball. Doesn't really seem like they need Kobe White. I'm not sure what his career hold
He's
for
the
him.
dude that was so excited that his teammate got drafted, right?
Yes, he
At
was.
North Carolina. That was one of the most awesome moments of that draft. That
And
whole
this
draft was great. I remember we were
his
at the Herald
teammate,
at
you
that
like
time.
his teammate. Do you
Yeah.
remember Cam Johnson? You're a big
Oh,
Cam
yeah.
Johnson guy.
Cam Johnson played well in the finals. Should have played more for Phoenix, which I don't know what got into the Suns after they're up 2-0. They just kind of like imploded at that point. I like Cam Johnson. I think he's a good player. He was not fearful of playing big minutes in the big moments. I like that player. But really, after the top two in that draft, there's some nice players, but nothing close to Ja or Zion.
No guys who really project as like all-stars. I mean, RJ Barrett, I suppose, could make an all-star game. Maybe Tyler Hero could make an all-star game.
Because he's playing on a glamour team.
Right.
So he could, I mean, if Tyler Hero's a 20 points per game scorer, Kyle Korver made an all-star team. Now that was a decade ago. So, but guys sneak in there once. I mean, Danny Ainge and Byron Scott, who were like the 6 best players on the Lakers and Celtics, later in their career when they kind of moved up the pecking order, both made an all-star team. Doc Rivers made an all-star team. So you could kind of sneak in there.
Brandon Haywood made an all-star team or something like that.
He did, and he's made like $300 million off of that. So that's always a fun exercise, Jed. Go back and look at all-star teams and say, how the hell did that guy make it? It's really surprising. But yeah, the top 2 guys I have confidence are going to be great players as long as Zion gets in better condition. And, I shouldn't be one to talk, but I'm also not a professional athlete.
Your guy, THT, he was a 2nd-round pick in that draft.
That's LeBron's guy. LeBron made that selection. Good pick. He hasn't played this year, but, he's the 13th guy on the Lakers roster, which is deeper than, the Rams roster.
Just to wrap things up in the draft, the Celtics at 14 took Romeo Langford. At 20, they traded Matisse Thybulle to the Sixers. Then at 22, they picked Grant Williams. And then at 33, they took Carson Edwards in that draft.
Yeah, not a good draft. I mean, Matisse Thybulle obviously would be a contributor on this team.
Yeah, I'd rather him than any of those 3 guys. I mean, listen, Grant Williams has played pretty well this year. I gave him credit the other day. I still give him credit. I still don't think he's that good. Romeo Langford, I don't really know what to make of him. I know he was a crazy high recruit. He's shown some flashes of being able to be an NBA player and some flashes of being a European League player. So
exactly, yeah. When you hear Brian Scalabrine talk about effort or lack of effort, and you're the 14th pick in the draft, and you're kind of a marginal player, that's alarming. If you're that guy, you've got to give max effort. And this is a problem we've seen with the Celtics. We're already 5 games in, and he's hurt all the time. Yeah, and we're hearing things about it. They didn't come to play tonight. And the Lakers can pull that off because they've got 5 guys on the 75th anniversary team or however many they have. The Celtics can't get away with that because they're still an ascending team. You think?
I'm glad you said that, Sap, too, because that's sort of what's driving me crazy a little bit about, Celtics Twitter and people on social media is like, they'll revel in the Lakers struggling, which, I mean, I do too. I revel in it too. And they're going, well, the Celtics are struggling, but at least the Lakers are. But if you're being realistic about it, like, okay, the Lakers can struggle and struggle and struggle. They still have LeBron James and Anthony Davis and those 2 guys have won a championship together, and LeBron has won a bunch of titles. And so, they could struggle, and then they still, at the end of the day, have guys who have won a title. The Celtics don't. So it's not the same situation.
No, it's not.
I love seeing the Lakers struggle. I'm down with that. But to say that the Celtics and the Lakers are both in the same situation is not. You're not looking at this seriously. You're not looking at this objectively. Like, both teams can struggle. That doesn't mean that the Lakers' ceiling isn't still much higher than the Celtics. That's just a fact. I hate saying it, but that's just true.
It's true. Yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, you look at this, and I know on talk radio in Boston this week, it was like, well, the Celtics have a big 2, right? And Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and the Lakers won a title with a big 2 in LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Let's not compare those 2 big 2s, right? Like, I think Anthony Davis is still a better player than Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And let's not even put LeBron into that discussion. And the other thing, too, is what separates LeBron, besides all of that incredible ability he has, he makes players around him better. We haven't seen that from Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown yet. I haven't seen it yet. Maybe we will. That's a big difference when you start to measure up, well, this big duo is as good as this big duo. You have to at some point make those around you better. And I still haven't seen that with Jason Tatum. It's been I mean, from the Lakers standpoint, they're 2-3, and Russell Westbrook's acting up, and all that fun stuff. But you see where Westbrook was the addition, because LeBron misses 2 games and Westbrook, goes out and plays fairly well. They win one, they lose one. He's fighting with the other team because they dunked at the buzzer. He found it disrespectful. All from a player who pads stats more than any player I've ever seen.
Yeah, he would definitely do that in the game. That's
oh my Lord. I mean, he would, do anything to get an assist, a rebound, to get a triple double. Russell Westbrook, in a sense, is kind of like the Pete Rose of basketball. Pete Rose knew his numbers. Like, he would tell you how many career hits he had, what his career average was. Wade Boggs is the same way. That's fine. I mean, I don't mind selfish guys, because, if you're in baseball, you get a hit, that helps the team. If you go get a rebound in basketball, you help the team. But for Westbrook, of all guys, to get offended by that, but, that's Russell Westbrook. So, so be it.
Yeah, again, it frustrates me when Celtics fans will be like, hey, it's bad here, but it's also bad in LA. Like, okay, the Lakers are starting slowly, but again, they have the ace in their pocket, the ace up their sleeves of having LeBron James on that team and Anthony Davis, and having a team that's won a championship, and they have a bunch of veterans, and the Celtics haven't accomplished anything with this group. Getting to the conference finals a couple of times, it's not an accomplishment. That's meaningless. So
remember last year towards the end
it's
of
not
the
a
NFL?
comparison.
No, I mean, remember last year at the end of the NFL season, there was 1 week there where Tampa was 7-5 and the Patriots were 6-6. So the people who didn't support Brady or anti-Brady were, all about Bill, were like, look, they're only 1 game ahead of us. I mean, and of course, 2 months later, he was hoisting his 7th Lombardi trophy, and the Patriots went 7-9. So yeah, there's a higher ceiling in LA because of the high end talent, and then also, but going back to Russell Westbrook, like, are they stuck with him for this year? I can't see. Well, like,
yes.
There's nothing they can do, and he's fine when guys are out. Like, I still can't wrap my head around this. I don't know. I don't think it's going to work. I really don't. And
you took them to win the title, Seth.
I did, because I think LeBron and Anthony Davis, if they're right, that's still the best duo in basketball. I mean, and again, and I look at Brooklyn with Harden still adapting to the new rules or trying to get in shape, and who the hell knows what Kyrie's going to do. And I think he could still make it work, he being LeBron. But Westbrook, to me, should, okay, and it's been brought up this week, he'd be best served as the leader of the second unit. Now,
he'll never do it.
Good luck with that, right? Like, good luck.
Not going to happen.
Say, Russell, by the way, you're not in the starting lineup tonight, but at the 6-minute mark, you're going to come in with Carmelo Anthony and whoever else, THT, if he's healthy. Pick, 4 of the guys you're going to be on the court with and go crazy. That's not going to happen. Like, there's probably 1 guy in the organization who can have that conversation with him. That's LeBron. Like, it's not going to be the coaches. It's not going to be, the front office. It may not even be, Jeannie Buss, the damn owner. It would have to be LeBron that, pulls Russell aside, say, Russ, for the betterment of the team, we need you to come off the bench. Here's what I would do. Still start him because, it's ceremonial. At the 6-minute mark, when you pull LeBron off the court, let Westbrook stay on there and play with some of the second unit. Because if you just look at the numbers and it becomes a numbers game, let's say LeBron's averaging 32 minutes a game and Russell Westbrook's averaging 32 minutes a game, and they're both playing that night, they could play 16 minutes together and then play 16 minutes without the other player on the court. I think that could kind of work, right? So,
yeah,
that's how you have to do it. And you start the game because you don't want to offend the guy because he's certainly a hothead. So start the game, and then just from that point forward, there's 10 other minutes in the course of the game, beginning of the 3rd quarter and maybe the beginning of the 4th quarter, or whatever you want to do to make it work, where there's 16 total minutes where LeBron and Westbrook are on the court together. The other 32 minutes, only LeBron plays 16 minutes. Westbrook plays only 16 minutes, and you go from there. But it's not going to be a comfortable situation, because I don't know what to compare this to, Jet. I mean, because basketball is obviously different. Like baseball, if the guy's, a bit of a loose cannon, all right, you bat him 7th and play him in right field. He's not going to matter.
He's not affecting the other people out on the field.
Westbrook, if Westbrook was playing baseball, he'd be playing in right field, and when the ball's hit to left field, he's going to run over and try to catch it. Like, I mean, it's just like,
I agree.
That's kind of his mentality, right? Like,
no, it's a weird fit. It was never a nice, clean fit. I think it's more about when LeBron and Anthony Davis missed time. And you saw that
Right.
they did get a win the other night when
Yep.
LeBron was out, but then they also got a loss. But I do think we talked about this at the beginning of the season too. I think the Western Conference is a little bit weaker than it has been.
Mhm.
And so I don't think it's ultimately going to matter that much. If the Western Conference was like what it was, a couple of years ago, and it's just like a murderer's row, then I
Right.
could see it being a real problem. But even if Westbrook's hurting the chemistry of the team in the playoffs, I still don't see a team like Phoenix or Denver beating the Lakers.
No, I don't. Not in 7 games. Not if LeBron and AD are healthy.
So
I
the
just
fit
don't
might
see
be
it.
awkward. I don't think it matters all that much when it comes down to it.
No, I mean, if LeBron and AD were healthy last year, they would have beat Phoenix in the first round. They would have gone to the finals and would have been interesting finals with them against Milwaukee, right?
Yeah.
Like, again, I think the only way to beat Milwaukee last year was with size, and whatever you say about the Lakers, they have that.
And I don't think they would have pissed away a 2-0 lead.
No, I couldn't see that happening. So, yeah, I mean, they were still right there. And look, we say the same thing about Brooklyn, right? If Kyrie doesn't get hurt, they probably beat Milwaukee. If Harden's healthy, they probably beat Milwaukee. If Durant's foot's an inch shorter, he hits a 3 to win the game instead of a 2 to tie it. So, yeah, I mean, that's how close that was last year. I mean, I don't think that
is Westbrook the only question then, Sap, is what it all boils down to. Is if is he a net negative?
Oh God, yeah. I mean,
you think I've never, is?
I don't think I've never been a big fan. I like, again, let me have to be separate on this. Personally, I like him a lot. I think he plays his ass off. You can't, that can't bother you, but he may be the least self-aware athlete I've ever seen, but and I love what he does off the court, right? I mean, he's got the production company, he's doing documentaries, he's great with charities. All that stuff I love, but on the court, man, he's frustrating to watch. He just reminds me of the guy like when we were all kids playing on the playground, and there was this one kid that just had way more energy than everybody, but he was kind of in the way. Like he was just like, banging into his teammates, the opponents, like diving after balls for no apparent reason. And it's like, whoa, dude.
That was me.
Chill. That was you, right? Yeah. I'm more of the Dennis
with
Johnson
minimal skill,
style.
though.
Right. See, I used to love watching Dennis Johnson because he just coasted. Like until he was needed to play, like DJ would let you go by him and he'd poke the ball behind you for a steal. There was nothing like extraneous about what he was doing out there. It was all nice and compact. Like he was smooth about it. So that's why a lot of people like Westbrook because of that, right? Because he almost plays like if you had been a fan on the court. Like I'm just going to give my complete effort and just knock everyone over and play my ass off. It almost feels like Drago, when it was supposed to be an exhibition match against Apollo Creed, and then Drago decided it wasn't. Yeah, it's kind of like Westbrook. Like this is an exhibition game, dude. Like you see how he busts his ass in the All-Star games.
Yeah,
and everybody's kind of looking at him like, Russ, take it easy, but he doesn't have any other speed. So he could be a net negative, absolutely. But they're gonna have to figure out how to have him on the court with the second unit, because I think he'd be really good at that. But how do you do that with a guy who's going to reject that? So those are the big things that Coach LeBron are going to have to figure out.
Yes, very true. And take this for what you will, Sap. The Washington Wizards 4-1 this year without Westbrook after that trade.
Yeah.
Early returns. Not saying one thing or the other, just giving you the information.
Okay, Spencer Dinwiddie, isn't he a better fit with John Wall than Russell Westbrook? I mean, he's
Bradley Beal.
With John, I still have John Wall playing in Washington. I sound like an old man. Bradley Beal, right? Like Dinwiddie, and the guys they got from the Lakers. I mean, KCP can get hot from the corner, and Kuzma can, I guess, get in the way. But you get my point. Yeah, I mean,
Kuzma sucks.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's just, that was not a great loss losing that guy. But yeah, I look, Buddy Hield would have looked great in a Laker uniform. Exactly what LeBron has always benefited from, and those great 3-point shooters. He has some on this roster, but there's so many damn players that are going to need minutes. Like it's like finding a needle in the haystack. Like, okay, we've got 14 guys on the bench tonight. How they're never going to have 14 guys on the bench because there's going to be load management, who's out, whatever. It's going to be like this revolving door. But God bless Frank Vogel, how in trying to incorporate all these players who all have massive egos. Like they're not
Oh
going to
yeah,
just.
Frank Vogel is totally doing it. It's not LeBron or anything.
I know. LeBron's, let's see if LeBron's going to have to coach the team. Maybe he can win NBA Coach of the Year and Executive of the Year if he pulls this off.
Possible.
Yeah.
If the Lakers were ever to get an Executive of the Year award, it should go to him. I mean, he 100% has made all the roster decisions.
Oh,
you
God,
can't
yeah.
tell me Rob Pelinka's doing it.
Of course. Yeah, that's not even. I mean, we see Brady getting more power in Tampa.
Yeah.
And it's worked, right? So if the Lakers pull this off, it worked. I mean, so when you're that good, you want to keep those guys happy. And look, I think Brady in football and LeBron in basketball have incredible knowledge of the sport, right? I mean, no one's debating that. So, maybe they have a better idea of what to do than, especially in basketball, because it's so player centric, so
yes.
I don't know. We'll see. This is a long season. Maybe Westbrook will fit in, but it's not going to be an easy fit. It never was going to be, and it's not going to be.
Yep. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us here at the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap. As always, we're presented by Full Press Coverage. Make sure you check out our social medias so you can see the latest on the show and any other opinions or musings Sap or myself might have at John Sap 25. That's the number 2 and 5, and at Jet Stryer. Also, the show, if you want to watch it instead of listen to it, is youtube.com/JetStryer. And if you want to listen to it and take it on the go, wherever podcasts are found, just type in the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, and we'll be right there. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we will talk to you later. See ya.